قال وهو ما يملكه الشخص دون حساب للربح. This is what is owned by a person without counting the profit. Okay, whatsoever a person has without counting a profit. This is what we call in English capital. Okay, capital. What you are investing, the amount of the money that you are investing. Okay, the amount of the money that you are investing, you are putting in an investment. So this money or the effort you're putting, we call it capital. So that's رأس المال. قال وهو ما يملكه الشخص دون حساب للربح. So when you invest that money, so at the end of your business, when you decide to liquidate the business or whatever amount of time you have given to the business to to succeed. So when you do the calculation at the end of any investment you're doing, when you extract the profit, the balance, which is the first money you invested in that business, we call it رأس المال. Okay, وهو ما يملكه الشخص دون حساب للربح. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن تُبْتُمْ فَلَكُمْ رُؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ لَا تَظْلِمُونَ وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about those people who are taking riba, and He invited them to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He says, when you repent, فَلَكُمْ رُؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. That means you have a right to take the exact amount you have given to that borrower. The money you gave somebody when he borrowed your money, we call it رأس المال. It used to happen in that way. The person will lend money to another person, and then he asks him to increase when he's returning back the loan. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَكُمْ رُؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. This is a capital, the plural of the رأس. لَكُمْ رُؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ لَا تَظْلِمُونَ وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ. Okay, so لَكُمْ رُؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ لَا تَظْلِمُونَ وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ. You have the capital you have invested, whether in a loan or whatever riba you're taking, you have the original amount, but the additional amount which you're taking from others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is not yours. لَا تَظْلِمُونَ وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ. You don't open the door for somebody to oppress you, and you don't also oppress others. قال ومن ذلك قوله تعالى وإن تبتم فلكم رؤوس أموالكم. So هو ما يملكه الشخص دون حساب للربح أو العائد. So you don't count the revenue that comes on top of the capital. So the capital, this is what we call رأس المال. وأما في الاصطلاح الفقهي فرأس المال في كل عقد هو مال معين يختلف حسب نوع العقد. So رأس المال, even in the technical definition given to it by the fuqaha, it means the same. It means the same. But it depends on the contract a person is having. You might have رأس المال, which is different from the رأس المال in another contract, based on the nature of the contract you're dealing with. That's why he says, فرأس المال في عقد السلم هو ما يجعل من الثمن. The رأس المال in the contract of salam contract is when you agree with a farmer, for example, and this farmer is going to grow rice for you, for instance, in the future, of course, and then you pay him the money now. But when is he going to deliver the rice? In the future. That's the contract of salam that Abdullah ibn Abbas said the Prophet ﷺ legalized it when he found the people in Medina dealing with it. So in the salam contract, what is the رأس المال? The رأس المال هو ما يجعل ما يعجل من الثمن. This is what you are given in advance, in advance of the money you are paying to the farmer. For instance, also in the contemporary era, the example of a salam is the what do you call some of the items of technology, like the phones. For instance, the iPhone, the Samsung, or whatever the brand you're using, they have in the system the future plan. What are they going to produce in the future? So you can go to the company and sign an agreement with them, since they are trusted, and usually what they plan, they execute it. So you can sign an agreement with them. For instance, if you have iPhone 1, you can sign an agreement with them to deliver you iPhone 2 in the future, because they already have the plan. They're just waiting for the time for them to produce it. So this is one of the examples given by our scholars. Contemporary example for the salam given by our scholars. So what is the Rasul Mal in salam? In salam contract, you have to give the price in advance. Otherwise, it will be part of the Bay'ul Kali bil Kali, al-Manhi anhu bil Ijma, the sale of debt with debt. This is rejected by the consensus of all of the scholars. So when you are engaging in a transaction of salam and you are going to delay the payment, until afterwards, then it is like you are selling debt with debt, loan with a loan. And that's rejected by all the scholars. So in the contract of salam, what is the Rasul Mal? The Rasul Mal in the contract of the salam, this is the advance payment you are making, given to the farmer. وفي شركة المضاربة ما يسلمه رب المال للعامل ليضارب به. In the contract of Mudaraba is the money that the Sahib al-Mal, the Rabb al-Mal, the capital provider, is given to the entrepreneur. Somebody whose job is to invest the money and make profit in it, and then they will come and share the profit with the capital provider. So what the capital provider is given is called Rasul Mal in the contract of Mudaraba. وفي شركة الأموال ما يتشارك فيه الشركاء من المال بقصد التنمية. In the contract of Sharika, partnership of Sharika al-Amwal, this is a type of contractual partnership, and I guess the previous lesson we talked about this. So this is when you have partners cooperating with each other. Each and every one of them is bringing certain amount of money, to make an investment, and they will share the profit in the future. So partnership means coordination, jointly agreeing to own something or to buy something or to invest something. That's partnership. So when I agree with one of you to do the partnership contract, I'm going to give certain part of money and you're going to give certain part of money. That the collection, the combined amount of money, which part of it is mine and part of it is yours, is the Ras al-Mal. So the money altogether, which is taken from you, some of it from me, is what we call Ras al-Mal. قال ما يتشارك فيه الشركاء من المال بقصد التنمية. Okay, with the intention in the sharika, in the partnership is what? Tanmiyah, growth, investment, to have more money. وفي الربا ما دفع من المال قرضا دون زيادة عليه. When it comes to the contract that engage riba, what is Rasul Mal in the contract of riba? The exact amount you are giving to that person who is borrowing the money from you is called Rasul Mal. The ziyada alayhi is called riba. Any increase on top of that is called riba. وفي بيوع الأمانة كالتولية والوضيئة فرأس المال فيها هو الثمن الذي اشتري به هو الذي اشترى به البائع. When it comes to the بيوع الأمانة, the trust sale, the sale that is based on trust, what is رأس المال in it is the money, the cost price, the exact amount of money that the seller paid when he was purchasing the item before he sell it to you. So basically, Ras al-Mal is what? Capital. It's as simple as that. The original amount of money. The original amount of money. This is the Ras al-Mal. That's why he says here, في اللغة هو أصل المال, the origin of the wealth. Okay, that's the capital. أصل المال. Okay, the second issue is the tawliya. That is a transaction called بيع التولية. What is tawliya? التولية في اللغة جعل الشخص واليا على أمر ما. To make somebody, to grant authority, to authorize somebody, to grant authority to somebody, to assign a job to another person, to give him authority, to give him authority and responsibility, So when you place another person is in a position, and you're giving him authority to take action, tuwalli, tawliya, tuwalli. Like the wali, yuwalli al-wulat, that's the governors, the president will appoint governors. So that appointment is called tawliya. So authorization is a kind of authorization. That's the linguistic approach. وفي اصطلاح الفقهاء يراد ببيع التلبية المبادلة بمثل الثمن الأول من غير زيادة ولا نقصان. What is بيع التولية according to the اصطلاح الفقهاء? When the fuqaha said بيع التولية, what are they talking about? They're talking about a transaction which is based on the original price without increase or decrease. So that means I come to you and you are the seller. And I ask you, I said, I just want to buy this exactly according to the way you bought it. Together with all of it costs, the cost price, maybe you encounter difficulty bringing it to pay some extra amount of money on top of its price. You include all of those ones. So it's a kind of a trust, because whatever you tell me, I have to trust you first for me to accept it. That's why they call it Bai'ut Tawliya. It's part of the transaction of amana. It's part of the transaction of amana. You get it? So بيع التولية المبادلة بمثل الثمن الأول من غير زيادة ولا نقصان, without any increase or decrease. فهو بيع من بيوع الأمانة, فالبائع مؤتمن بالإخبار عن الثمن الذي اشترى به. So in this case, you see, if you are the seller and I ask you to tell me exactly how much does it cost you to bring it here, how much is the cost price? So I'm entrusting you. That's why they call it Bay'ul Amana. That means I have to act, you have to act as a trustee, to tell me exactly how much it cost you. And that's why in these type of things, sometimes it is better for you to, mention things in detail, to give a brief of explanation. The price I got this is 20,000 dinar. But for me to get it inside Kuwait, I have to pay the tax, and the tax costs me 1,000 dinar. So that's mean 21 dinar. And I had to purchase the license and all of these things that the car has now up to this moment. It cost me altogether 25,000 dinar. It has to be in detail, because I might be including things which are not supposed to be included, like the sale of the brokers, the samsara, advertisement. I pay money for the advertisement. I cannot include it because this is supposed to be my job. But the money I pay for the security to preserve it up to this moment, I can include it inside. Issues like that. So that's why mentioning things in detail when it comes to the Biyul Amana is always important. The next one, so we're done with the Rasulman and we're done with the Tawliya. The next one is Al-Wadi'a. Okay, by Al-Wadi'a. والوضيعة لغة الخسارة والنقصان. الخسارة والنقصان. الخسارة والنقصان. You have khasara as a loss and deficiency. And nuqsan means deficiency, decrease, okay, or deficiency. So واصطلاحا الخسارة من رأس المال. When they're talking about wadi'ah, they're talking about the loss that you encounter in the capital. So you have the capital money. When you encounter loss inside the capital itself, we call it Bay'u al-Wadi'ah. So you sell something. For instance, you bought the phone 20,000 dinar, for instance, and then you're going to sell it to me 10,000 dinar. The capital that you invested in the phone is 20,000 dinar. And now you are selling the phone at the cost of 10,000 dinar. That means you are losing in the capital. So that's Bay'u al-Wadi'ah. As long as there is taradi, there is a mutual consent, agreement between you and the one who is buying, there is no problem with that, because the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ عَنْ تَرَاضِي. As long as they are not agreeing on something which involves riba or gharar or oppression or maisir, the transaction is going to be executed. And as long as they're not selling something which is prohibited Islamically to be sold. وقيل هي البيع بمثل الثمن الأول. Some scholars said al-wadi'a is to sell with the same price with the cost price, to sell at the cost price without getting any profit. مع نقصان شيء معلوم منه. Okay, you sell so if you added the second part of the definition, then it is not ثمن الأول anymore. So use the ثمن الأول as a criteria, but then you reduce a little bit, from it. That's why they call it wadi'ah. Because if there is no decrease, reduction, there is no decrease in the original amount, then you cannot call it wadi'ah. There is no wadi'ah at all in it. ويقال لها أيضا المواضعة والمخاسرة. One of the names also given to it, you might be hearing saying المواضعة والمخاسرة. المواضعة والمخاسرة. والمحاطة, because محاطة means تحط الشيء, to reduce something, to bring it down. فهي مضادة للمرابحة. So if you can see here, الوضيعة أو المواضعة is absolutely contrary to the sale of murabaha, because murabaha is based on looking for profit, and this one is based on looking for a loss. وتأتي بمعنى الحط من الدين, and sometimes also they call it وضيعة. Sometimes they call it وضيعة بمعنى الحط من الدين. When a person reduces something from the loan, like what they said in the hadith or in part of the seerah, although it is weak narration, but the Prophet ﷺ with the Jew of Banu an-Nadir, when they said to him, Ya Muhammad, we lent money to your companions and now we are leaving this place, we are leaving the place, so what to do now? Your people are not paying us the money. So the Prophet ﷺ, according to that part of the seerah, told them, Da'u wa ta'ajjalu, decrease, reduce some part of it, and then ask them to pay now. Decrease the loan and then ask them to pay now. قال وتأتي بمعنى الحط من الدين أيضا والوضيعة أيضا الوظيفة التي تكون على الملك وهي ما يلزم الناس في أموالهم من الصدقة والزكاة. So sometimes the action that a person, the obligation that is there placed in the wealth that somebody has, ma yalzamuka means the obligation that Allah SWT placed on your wealth. Sometimes they use this to call that obligation that you're extracting wadi'a. Because physically, if you look at it, it is decreasing the wealth at that moment alone. But afterwards, it is going to increase it, as the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ma naqasat sadaqatun min malin shay'a." Charity never decreases wealth; it's always increased the wealth. وَهِيَ مَا يَلْزَمُ النَّاسَ فِي أَمْوَالِهِم مِّنَ الصَّدَقَةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ. What is obligatory upon people in their wealth from the charity and the zakah. Sadaqah is the normal charity, and zakah is the one that you already know, zakat al-amwal or zakat al-fitr. So we know what wadi'a means, right? Inshallah. So wadi'a means to reduce, to decrease, to give discount on top of the capital you use to buy the product which you're selling to somebody now. Okay, the next is al-murabaha, which is the opposite of the wadi'a. Okay. Wal-murabahatu lugatan ar-ribhu. It is taken from the word ar-ribh, wa huwa an-nama, and this is the increase. Okay, wa huwa an-nama, and this is the increase. واصطلاحا المرابحة هي بيع سلعة بمثل الثمن الذي اشتراها به البائع مع زيادة ربح معلوم متفق عليه بنسبة من الثمن. So what is بيع المرابحة? بيع المرابحة is taken from the word الربح. مرابحة من المفاعلة. That means two people are engaged in getting a profit. The buyer is looking for a profit, and the seller also is looking for the profit, for the benefit. That's the reason why, to minimize the profit the buyer is going to get, the seller is asking the buyer to go for murabaha. What is murabaha? Murabaha is nothing but the revelation of the cost price by the seller. He has to reveal the cost price, and on top of the cost price, he add a little bit of markup, some amount of profit, which is going to be agreed upon between him and the buyer. That's murabaha. Okay, so I have my car, I want to sell the car, and one of you wants to buy it. So you tell me you want to do murabaha. What does that mean? I have to tell you the cost I bought the car with it. How much does it cost me to purchase the car? Up to this moment, I'm selling it. How much does it cost me? To get an idea. So I tell you the price. That's why they put it based under the contract of amana, because I'm entrusted. Although nowadays this trust also is gone, because even with the receipt, you might not know what exactly the price was, because nowadays people cheat also in the receipt. The company write whatever they ask for. And Allah understand, we're living in a very contaminated time. Allah understand. But this is the Bay'ul Murabaha, and this is the interpretation and the definition of Murabaha. And I want you to really understand what Murabaha is all about, so that if you go to this so-called sometimes Islamic transaction, which is not, you should understand what Murabaha is all about and what is not Murabaha. So Murabaha is a sale contract in which the seller is supposed to reveal the cost price and add a profit, which is going to be placed on the table of the buyer, and the buyer agrees with it, or ask for deduction, per gain, he tells him the profit and the cost price, they agree upon the profit, and then the case will be, and the sale will be executed. This is murabaha. Okay, I have a car, I repeat, I want to sell it. You ask me to do murabaha, that means I tell you how much I got it, how much I bought it, I tell you the amount, and then you ask me how much is my profit, and then I tell you the profit. We make an agreement. This is murabaha. So the first contract should be correct, for the second contract to be correct. If the first one is not correct, the second one will not be correct. The first contract should exist, a real existence also. That means the first person, the seller should own a complete ownership, complete ownership. Then he can sell it to the buyer in murabaha or whatever kind of transaction he is looking for. قال أو بمبلغ مقطوع سواء وقعت من غير وعد سابق وهي المرابحة العادية. So sometimes murabaha can happen without any prior promise. I do not talk to anyone. I just go and do the murabaha with him. And sometimes I told him to buy, and then he bought, and I told him if he buy, I will buy. And then the murabaha happens after he bought it, after I inform him about my interest to buy if he got it. So this is مراbaha من طرف بوعد سابق من طرف العميل نحو المؤسسة لشراء السلعة وهذه المرابحة المصرفية. In the masarif, in the banks, this is the murabaha they do. But this one is questionable because the bank has to own. If you look at the international monetary system, it's not easy unless if the government in whatever country the bank is living, they're going to give certain respite to lift the restrictions, that the bank can own. So the only problem with this type of murabaha is the ownership issue. Because if you to go, as one of our scholars said, you go and inform the bank about the car that you already finalized the deal with somebody else. So the deal is between you and that person. When you go to the bank, you're looking for the finance. That's why in the past they used to call it car loans, house loans, but now they modify it and change it as usual. So what to do is to fix it, the bank has to own a complete ownership. It has to get under his custody first, which means it is optional between him and the other one. That would be legal case. If I promise the bank to buy and then later on I said I don't want to buy, that's a legal case. Take him to the court. Go to the issue, it will be a legal case. But it shouldn't be compulsory upon him to buy from the beginning and the bank did not own the car. The Prophet ﷺ told Hakim bin Hizam, لا تبع ما ليس عندك. So when I go to a third party and I make an agreement with him and then I come back to the bank, I'm looking for the financial aid and financial support, and this is what loan is all about. And whatever amount it is going to be increased on top of that which the bank paid to get the car, it will be a riba transaction. So it is bay al-mashru' al-murabaha. It is bay mashru'. Halal. Halal, alhamdulillah. But we have to do it correct. As I said, the first transaction has to be halal, and the ownership has to be transferred, and also the possession has to be there. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam naha at-tujjar an yabi'u amti'atahum hatta yahuzuhu ila rihalihim hatta yadkhula fi dhamanihim. In some narration, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, they are not supposed to sell something before it gets under their custody. How does it happen? It happens when the transfer of ownership is completely done, and now I'm responsible. Whatever happened to the car, I'm responsible. Then I can sell it to somebody else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show us the day, inshallah, these transactions and the bunuk and whatever we're dealing with nowadays will be fixed. Inshallah, they will be patient to practice that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, rizq will come, inshallah. The next transaction after the murabaha. So murabaha is what? Is when you reveal the cost price to somebody who is interested in buying your property, and then you add a profit on top of that cost price, and then you see whether he will agree or not. If he agrees, you execute that transaction. So this is murabaha. This is murabaha, when there is a revelation of the cost price, because it is not obligatory upon me as a seller to reveal the cost price to the buyer. But if the buyer asks me to do that, that's means he's looking for murabaha. So I can go for the murabaha with him. You get idea. I tell him the cost price, and then I tell him my profit in it. If he agrees, alhamdulillah. So as I said, the first transaction has to be correct, and the ownership have to be completely transferred to the seller. Then the seller can engage in selling it to somebody else. The next one is بيع المزايدة. After the murabaha, we have the muzayada. What is muzayada? Muzayada لغة من الزيادة. لغة من الزيادة. الزيادة is increase. Okay, increase. وهي النماء, growth and increase. This is muzayada. تزايد أهل السوق على السلعة إذا بيعت لمن يزيد. So sometimes the people will say تزايد أهل السوق على السلعة إذا بيعت لمن يزيد. So Ahl Suq means the people in the market, you know, the customers, they come. When they see this bidding process is taking place, they go and join. You know, that is the starting price. For instance, somebody wants to sell his car, the starting price is 1,000 dinar. You know, and they will wait and see who will increase, you know. So this one will say 2,000 dinar. This one will say 5,000 dinar, 6,000 dinar, 7,000 dinar. So they're looking for somebody who will pay the highest price. They're looking for somebody who will pay the highest price. They're looking for somebody who will pay the highest price. So that's the muzayada. The one who pays the highest price, they go with that person. Okay, this is what is called muzayada. And in some places in the Arab countries, they call it haraj. So this muzayada, according to the scholars, this is the linguistic approach. According to the scholars, أن ينادى على السلعة ويزيد الناس فيها بعضهم على بعض حتى تقف على آخر زائد فيها فيأخذها. So they will bring the sila, the product, whatever they want to sell, okay, and they will tell people the starting price, and they will start the bidding. This one will say this one will come and increase, this one will come and increase. It will go like this until the time it goes to the highest increase, and then they will finalize. When there's nobody increasing, they will just have to sell it in that what you call, according to that price. وهو بيع جائز بإجماع المسلمين, and this is a transaction. Sometimes also it's called بيع الدلالة or الدلالة. Is a transaction which is permissible by the consensus of all of the scholars. Okay, the only thing that is supposed to be there is there has to be a description of the car. If it is a car or house or whatever, there must be the description about it, about its nature, its features. You know, if there is any deficiency, they must mention the deficiency that is in that car. So if there is any deficiency, they must mention any deficiency. Otherwise, the khiyar will be in existence. You know, person who is buying will have an option. If he buys it, but he did not know about a deficiency because the buyer, the seller did not tell him about that deficiency. In this case, he does have a right to return it back, even let's say after 10 years, as long as he can prove that this deficiency happened before he bought the car. You know, as long as he can prove it, if this deficiency happens before he bought the car, then he can return it back and get his money back, or he asked for the compensation. We can't value the deficiency in the market. The experts should value the deficiency, and then they tell them the deficiency, and then the seller has to pay this amount of money back to the buyer. So bay'ul mazayida is jaiz bil ijma, so it's halal by consensus of all the scholars. Okay. The next topic is khiyar al-sharti. Khiyar is option. You know, when something become optional, either to go for it or not to go for it, or you have your option, you have the option, you have the choice whether to keep it or to return it back. We call it a shart. We call it khiyar. Khiyar al-shart. This is the option that is based on condition. You know, based on condition. So you set up a condition. I have an option. You set up a condition. When this happens, then I will execute it, or I will decline. Or you buy something. You said, I have my condition. It has to be like this. I buy, but I have to stay in the house for 10 years first. Then I can transfer it to you. I'm just exaggerating, but you buy the house and the owner tells you that I have to stay in it for a month, because I need to look for another location. الشرط إلزام الشيء والتزامه في البيع ونحوه. When they said shart, according to the language, is to make something obligatory upon yourself, to impose something on your shoulder, on yourself, to impose something on yourself. So when it comes to transaction, you are imposing something which is not supposed to be there and obligatory upon you, but you are making it obligatory upon you. واصطلاحا حق يثبت لأحد المتعاقدين أو كليهما يخول لصاحبه فسخ العقد خلال مدة معلومة. So when they say خيار الشرط, according to the language, according to the technical definition, when they say خيار الشرط أو الشرط, they're talking about the condition which is establishing a right for one of the two contracting parties or both of them. Within the short periods of time, they will set up a time that if this happens within these periods of time, then something should take place. Or I will get this right, or I will lose this right, or I will not agree. If this go bad within this period of time, then I will cancel the transaction. ومن أسمائه الخيار الشرطي والخيار التروي أو التروي. أو التروي, that's the best in it, not تروي. خيار التروي وبيع الخيار وهو جائز عند الجمهور. So one of the names of the خيار الشرط is the خيار الشرطي, same as what we are talking about. أو التروي. تروي is to contemplate, give you a chance to go and think, and ponder whether you go with it or you cancel it. This is also a name given to خيار الشرطي. وبيع الخيار. And also sometimes the transaction that contains the khiyar, they call it a transaction of khiyar, sale of khiyar. هو جائز بالإجماع. And it is, halal by the consensus of the scholars. As the Prophet ﷺ says, أو يشترط. He says, البيعان بالخيار ما لم يتفرقا. أو يشترط. As long as they are together, they still have their choice whether to decline or to go with the transaction, as long as the two contracted parties are all together. If they get separated, then the transaction will be binding, except if there is a condition. When one of them set up a condition, then the transaction will not be binding until the end of that condition he has. The next term is the word najis. What does najis mean? Najis means something that happens on the spot, tangible. من نجز أي ذهب وانقطع وحضر, to make something effective, to make something present, to make something happening on the spot. This is the word najis. So this one is used a lot. When you read the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, you will see this. The fuqaha also, when you're reading their books, you will see this a lot mentioned by the scholars of fiqh. What do they mean if they use the word najis? What exactly are they talking about when we see them using the word najis? قال يستعمله الفقهاء في الحضور والتعجيل. They are talking about things which are supposed to be settled in the present time and also on the spot and in advance. Okay. فيقولون باعه ناجزا بناجز, and he sold him something that is present with something that is present. You pay the money now, and the thing also given to you that is supposed to be given to you is also present now. يدا بيد. So when they said يدا بيد means both are present. So what does that mean? They're going to be transferred يدا بيد. They pay hand to hand. وباعه غائبا بناجز, and sometimes also he might sell something that is absent with something that is present. So that means nasi'atan binaqdin. So something that is supposed to be paid in the future, and in return you pay him something now. If it is not based on the riba and nasi'a, it will be okay. For instance, if somebody is buying rice with dinar, it's okay to pay the money now and to get the rice after a few days. كما يستعملون التنجيز في صيغ العقود فيقولون عقد ناجز وهو ما يتم ترتب آثاره عليه من وقت صدور المدة المحدودة له شرعا واتفاقا. Sometimes they use the word at-tanjiz in various type of contract that they deal with. So they will tell you aqdun najis, this is the contract that is najis. What does that mean? They mean the contract which the effects of that contract take place right on the spot, or within the duration which is prescribed or agreed upon by the contracting parties, or within the duration which is agreed, which is the Sharia stipulated. You get it? So usually the word najis, when they use it, they are talking about something that happens on the spot. So the cash or the money I'm paying somebody on the spot. So they call it najis. Okay? Or within the period which is legalized by the Sharia and is stipulated time by the Sharia. The next, which is second to the last, is Bay'ul Wafa, the transaction which is called Bay'ul Wafa. والوفاء لغة ضد الغدر ضد الغدر. So al-wafa, according to the language, is contrary to the word al-ghadr. Ghadr is deception. Ghadr is deception. So when we say al-wafa, wafa is the opposite of deception. Is the opposite of deception. So we know what deception means. Wafa is the opposite of deception. That's meant to keep your word, not to deceive, not to cheat. واصطلاحا أن يبيع المحتاج إلى النقود عقارا أو عينا على أنه متى وفى الثمن استرد العقار أو العين. These are one of the transactions that people use to reach riba, bay'ul wafa, which is absolutely wrong. Okay, absolutely wrong. Is one of the biyu'ah that people use to, go through them in order to reach riba. Using the back door to riba, like the sale of Eid. So what happens in Bay'ul Wafa? How does that happen? Somebody who's looking for money, a person who is looking for money. So what does he do? He will take his car to another person and he will tell him, I will sell my car to you and you pay me the amount of the money. After 1 year, I will return back the money to you to take back my car. But this car is yours because you already bought it, so you can use it until the time I return back the money, and then you take back your, I return back the money, and then you have to give me back the car. So if you look at it, you will say this is a sale contract, and this is actually the reason why they're bringing it about. But if you go to the reality deeply in the meaning, you will understand that this is nothing except a back door being open to a serious riba. And the Sharia says, العبرة في العقود بالمقاصد والمعاني. And the scholar said, العبرة في العقود بالمقاصد والمعاني لا بالألفاظ والمباني. In Islam, the recognition concerning the matters of contract, Sharia is paying attention and focusing on the meaning, the maqsad, and also the meaning and the intention. لا بالألفاظ والمباني. It is not focusing on the phrases and the building structure. So we look into the meaning. What exactly are they doing? And after that, we will be able to understand where exactly are they going. That's how we detect them when they do the transaction of Aina. So the same goes to Al-Wafa. Bay'ul Wafa actually is nothing but the Rahan contract in which the person is getting the benefit from it. In the Rahan contract, the collateral, the mortgage, when you give your property to another person, when you borrow money from him, in case you fail to pay him the money, he can extract his right from that money or that property you have given him. This is what is called Rahan. In the case of Rahan, if you take the money, the creditor, the one who gave the money to the borrower, he is not allowed to utilize the Rahan, except if he is going to pay compensation to that. The Prophet ﷺ said, الظهر يركب بنفقته إذا كان مرهونا ولبن الدر يحلب ويشرب بنفقته إذا كان مرهونا. So somebody gave an animal, a horse, as a Rahan, that person who takes the horse is not allowed to utilize it. It's not allowed to use it unless if he pays for that. Even if the borrower is giving him free, he's not allowed to use it. Because the scholar said, كل قرض جر منفعة فهو ربا. Any loan that generate, any gain that you generated because of the loan you have given somebody, that benefit is called also riba. So this is what is happening here. It is a rahan contract that you have given that person, but unfortunately, that person is making use of the rahan. At the end of the day, you are going to return back the loan you have taken from him. So he benefited. He got back his money and he benefited from the property you have given him. وقد سماه بعض الفقهاء بيع الأمانة والشافعية يسمونه الرهن المعاهد. And some scholars call it they put it under the بيع الأمانة, and the Shafi'i scholars, they call it الرهن المعاهد. They say this is a rahan that return back. They keep the word rahan. ومن أسمائه بيع أيضا البيع الجائز, and sometimes they call it البيع الجائز وأن له أن يكون جائزا. They call it sometimes بيع الجائز, but it is not. وبيع المعاملة, these are all names. وبيع الإطاعة وبيع الطاعة, these are all names given to it. وقد ذهب المالكية والحنابلة والمتقدمون من الحنفية والشافعية إلى أن بيع الوفاء فاسد. So the vast majority of the scholars believe that بيع الوفاء is wrong. Most of the scholars believe that بيع الوفاء is wrong. But you have some of the contemporary scholars from the Hanafiya and the Shafi'iyya who believes it is halal. But that's absolutely wrong. وقال بعضهم إنه رهن حقيقة فله أحكام. Some scholars said it is the rahan and it carries all the effects of the rahan. And that's wrong also. ولقد أصدر مجمع الفقه الإسلامي, مجمع الفقه الإسلامي or مجمع الفقه الإسلامي, they already released the qarar, the resolution that says, decision that says that this بيع الوفاء is nothing but قرضاً جر نفعاً, is nothing but a loan contract that generates a benefit for the lender. هو تحايل على الربا. So they said these are playing games with the riba, coming to take riba from the back door, and as such they declare this transaction to be wrong. وبعدم صحته قال جمهور العلماء فيبقى عقد غير جائز شرعا. So most of the scholars believe that this transaction is impermissible. So as such, a Muslim is not allowed to engage in bayu al-wafa because it's nothing except a loan contract. Okay, the last thing is as nothing but just a comparison between murabaha and wadi'a and tawliya. To get an idea. So it says here, al-murabaha, بيع المرابحة هو أن يصرح البائع للمشتري بالثمن الذي اشترى به السلعة ويتفقان على أن يربحه مبلغا معينا. وأما بيع الوضيعة فهو أن يصرح له بالثمن الذي اشترى به ويضع عنه مقدارا معينا بينهما فيخسر البائع ذلك المبلغ. والفرق بين المرابحة والوضيعة أن المرابحة يربح فيها البائع بينهما بينما في الوضيعة يخسر لكي يبيع سلعته. الفرق بين المرابحة والوضيعة أن المرابحة يربح فيها البائع بينما في الوضيعة يخسر لكي يبيع سلعته. أما بيع التولية فهو البيع بثمن الشراء دون زيادة ولا نقصان. وكل من المرابحة والوضيعة والتولية من بيوع الأمانة لأن البائع مؤتمن في التصريح بالثمن الحقيقي الذي اشترى به السلعة. If you look at this statement, we have already talked about each and every one of them in the previous slides. بيع المرابحة, we said this is when you announce, and you reveal the cost price, للمشتري, to the one who is buying from you. So you tell him the cost price, and then you add something that you and him will end up agreeing on it to be the markup, to be the profit. When you agree, then you can execute the transaction. This is murabaha, looking for profit. You tell the cost price and you add something on top of it. As for the wadi'ah, this one also you tell the cost price to the buyer, but then you do not add anything. And instead of adding something, you reduce from the cost price. Actually, you tell him I bought it 20,000, but I will sell it to you 18,000. That's what we are. So in this case, you see that the buyer, the seller, he lost something. So the difference between murabaha and wadi'ah is that in the murabaha there is a profit. In wadi'ah there is a loss. There is a profit on top of the capital, and in the wadi'ah there is a loss. From the capital, he lost something from the capital. As for the tawliya is when you ask the seller, to tell you the price. So the revelation of the price exists, in all of these transactions. The murabaha, al-wadi'ah, al-tawliya, in all of these transactions there is a revelation of the price by the seller. Revelation of the price by the seller. In murabaha, he added profit. In wadi'ah, he reduced from the capital. In at-tawliya, he sell it with the price, without decrease, with the cost price. So in both of them, in all of them, there is a revelation of the price by the buyer, by the seller, and the buyer is entrusting him in that. In all of them, this revelation of the price must exist. In murabaha, in wadi'ah, in tawliya, the revelation of the price must exist. But as I said, in murabaha, there is an increase on top of the capital. In al-wadi'ah, there is a decrease from the capital. In at-tawliya, this is the one that is neutral. There is no increase, there is no decrease. So he says all of these transactions, they are part of the bai'u al-amana, bai'u al-amana. That's the trust sales, the sales that are based on trust, sales that are based on trust, because in all of them you are entrusting the seller to tell you the truth. Because in all of these transactions, you are entrusting the seller to tell you exactly how much did he get the item. So I guess inshallah the dars is simple, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. I hope it is simple and easy to be understood. So I will go through these terminologies and close the class, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. I hope you benefit somehow, inshallah. The first one is Rasul Mal, which we said it is the capital, and the second one we talk about is the tawliya, where you ask the seller to tell you exactly how much he bought the thing, and then you buy according to that price. You don't add, you don't decrease. Al-wadi'ah, this is the loss, the sale which is at loss. You lost from the capital. So you ask the buyer to tell the seller to tell you how much he got it, and then you ask him to decrease from that capital also, from that cost price. And murabaha, you also ask the seller to tell you how much he got it, but then you ask him to tell you the profit he wants to add on top of it. Muzayada is the auction or the bidding, whereby you bring something that you want to sell, you have the starting price, and then people will keep on increasing, and you are going to sell it to the one who will give you the highest price. Khiyaru shart, this is the conditional option. That's the option that somebody is making, a shart, the condition that somebody is making, not options, a condition that somebody is making after the finalization or execution of the transaction, which he make it mandatory upon you to accept it if you agree. That is safqa. Safqa is a transaction which we did not go through it. And there is a word najis, which is something that happens immediately. So when you see something najis, that means it is paid on the spot. You see, the next one is bai'ul wafa. This is the sale contract whereby I sell my house, for instance, and then the agreement between me and the buyer is that I will take the price from him, the money from him. And after a few years or 1 year, if I am able to return back the money, I will take back my house. So we said, in reality, this is a loan contract. In reality, this is a loan contract that generates benefit to the lender, which is wrong Islamically. And the differences between murabaha and wadi'ah and tawliya is that all of them, in all of them, there has to be a revelation of the price, cost price by the seller. But in murabaha, there is a profit gain. In wadi'ah, there is a loss from the capital. In a tawliya, there is no profit and there is no gain. So that's what we have done today. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, hoping you have enjoyed, inshallah ta'ala. I will stop here, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, hoping to see you in the next class, which I guess might be the last one for this noble cause. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of us. and be with us wherever we are. إنه بكل جميل كفيل. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Treadmill.